Hi and welcome back to the Nuke. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to have a bit more of a classic booktube video, which is a January wrap-up video. Now I think I only finished 3 books this month, and I have a couple of books that I did not finish, and then a few that I'm trying to currently read. And I feel like this format would make much more sense, so I'm going to go through the books I finished, the books that I'm currently trying to read, and then some of the other things, specifically YouTube videos that I've been watching that really informed me a whole lot this month. So why would I do a format like this? Well, I realized that within the month, I normally go through a lot of books. I usually preview quite a lot of books before I choose to put them down, like I don't want to finish them. Also, I tend to have a lot of current reads that I just feel aren't really right for the time that I'm reading them, or I just want to introduce them on this channel in case I never ever really get to talk about them in a wrap-up video or in any of my lengthened book reviews and such. In total, I have 8 books to talk about today, 3 of which I finished, and the other 5 sort of either put down or in the process. So the first book I want to talk about is Work Won't Love You Back: How Devotion to Our Jobs Keep Us Exploited, Exhausted, and Alone by Sarah Jeff. Now, this is a book that I felt was pretty relevant. I've had my eyes on it since a couple months back when it was published, and I saw it at the bookstore. It had a really big cover. I remember it being a hardcover book that was quite substantial in size. So in this book, Jeff kind of details various occupations in which people have been sort of exploited because of the narrative of passion, or the narrative of like care, or like, I don't know, instinct or calling, whatever you might want to call it, like an inherent drive to accomplish those things, or that these jobs are made natural for certain people, and that people are supposed to add in this additional labor as part of who they are. So for example, this could be in reference to service crew, where a lot of women are the ones that take on these part-time service jobs, and they're expected to put on this additional emotional labor of being very pleasing to the eye, being very courteous, and this is attributed to the nature of women in general, and not necessarily because it is inherent part of the job that needs to be done, regardless of whatever worker occupies that space. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this book. I felt like the topic was really interesting, and I thought it was great that the author went by vocation, and to really specify exactly how these vocations, and I like how the author has actually put out the case for each of these vocations as to why these jobs have always been historically underpaid, etc, etc. I thought that was interesting. However, I felt that it was a bit lacking in terms of what the actual context was, or what the actual solution was. In the end, I felt that the solution was just to unionize, just create unions, and it was a very flat solution. I just felt like it was a bit of a selective crowd that the author was talking to, people that have already been able to unionize, or people who have been able to access those resources to be able to like fight for certain worker rights. And understandably, creating worker unions are a big part of the solution. However, I just felt that it didn't really talk about how the unions really helped to mitigate all these problems, and also it didn't really talk about the consequences of like how these levels of exploitation and exhaustion really impact communities as a whole. I just felt like it was very individualistic, and it was an interesting read. It was more of like a historical case study sort of book, but it didn't really give a general enough framework that could be applied to a lot of places. And I felt that the whole union thing was a bit out of touch for me, especially given where I am from. So I found it a bit hard to relate to, but that is really speaking from my experience, where worker unions are not a thing, and that jobs, you know, even if they're argued by passion, are still very much never gonna see the same amount of respect and prestige and compensation as other jobs that are not supposed to be driven by passion. So that is where I am. So reading this book sort of just made me realize, like, yeah, I mean, that's true. The headline, the title is true, but it didn't really tell me anything beyond what the title suggests. And I think that made the book a bit more of a superficial reading. So that's my take on it. I still feel it's a pretty good book to add into a more general reading list about work. But on its own, it wasn't anything that was particularly insightful. So moving on, I read this book, A History of My Brief Body by Billy Ray Belcott. I actually did do a mini book review of this book on my Bookstagram, so you can go and check it out. You can follow me on Instagram because I know that everyone is at different platforms. I realize that my followers on all these platforms are like totally different. So yes, I am on Bookstagram. I have been there before I had a YouTube actually. So if you're interested, you can check that out. But yes, when I first started reading this book, I was a bit hesitant. The language was extremely self-facing. I felt that the whole voice was very self reflecting. It wasn't immediately effective. I don't think it was a type of writing that you could immediately latch onto. But I just felt that this writing was more of being able to understand the mood or understand the state of mind that the author has been in. And because of that, I felt that it was a pretty effective book overall at the end of the whole thing. And I don't think every personal essay has to have a point. I think that's the whole point of personal essays, is that they are personal. They're really up to the author as to how they want to express themselves. And I felt that this was a great expression of who Billy Ray Belcott is. And I think that is sufficient for the purpose of a personal essay. So I would recommend this book, I think, quite high on that queer reading list. I do think that Belcott really was able to embody what queer writing is, not just in being able to articulate the feeling, but also in playing with the form of writing and being able to express the kind of liminality, the kind of fluidity, the kind of desires that come with a queer existence. I think Belcott was really able to capture that very well, and very beautifully in a way. And I actually really enjoyed how the reader just was present. Like the reader just had to be there and to bask in it, and there was a sense that you didn't have to be there for the beauty in this book to stand, which I enjoyed in my position as a reader. So that was pretty rare for me. I don't think it's very common for a book to be able to do that, but that's also my reading as a reader. If you're just reading it, you know, in your own way, you might not take away the same feelings that I've had while reading this book. But overall, I really enjoyed the book. I would recommend it for specific instances, especially if you're someone that likes personal essays, if you're someone that really likes to read more about queer cultures and queer ways of being, then this would be a really great addition to your list. The next book that I finished is The Hidden History of Burma, Race, Capitalism, and the Crisis of Democracy in the 21st Century by Than Minh Chiu. This is a great book. I think, especially with whatever is going on with Myanmar / Burma. I still don't know how to refer to the region. I do think that this would be very great background reading. Obviously, it's not the most updated because it was published prior to 2021, but there is a lot of detail here that I really appreciate as someone that has never really read about the region before. Also, I really enjoy how the author is being... I really enjoy how the author was able to blend a personal touch with kind of historical objectivity. I don't know how objective it is. It definitely sounds objective to me, but that is from my perspective. It could be biased, but I also do think that the author isn't trying to hide his biases either. So I think that is a great way to write history, to recognize that you are in a certain position writing a certain account, and that you're just presenting to the reader what you know and what you know other people know, and that you are not claiming anything beyond that. I think that's a great way of writing historical accounts of anything, and that would be one of the main reasons why I would recommend this book, regardless of whether you have an interest or a stake in the whole politics of this thing. I do think first, like, we all have a stake in understanding the politics behind this, but second, as a book on history and on a region that's so kind of, you know, represented in so many different ways internationally, this is a great book to really build your foundation of understanding of the whole issue. So because of that, I would really recommend it. But I also want to recommend another book in relation to that, which would be Picking Off New Shoots Will Not Stop the Spring. I don't know whether that's the full title, but this is a collection of witness poems and prose and essays co-published by Ethos Books, which is a local publisher here in Singapore. That and this would be a great pair of books to read together if you want to know more about this issue. Now it's time to talk about the books that I did not finish. The very first book I did not finish was No Logo by Naomi Klein. This was a really thick book. I was really halfway reading, I think somewhat halfway before I decided to drop the book, and I just felt that I did mention some of the reasons why in my previous vlog, but I just felt that it was way too heavy on the details for me right now to really absorb what's going on, and every single chapter is just so lengthy and so dense. I really enjoy Klein's writing normally, but I think that because this was a bit earlier in her sort of publishing career, that it felt more like a compilation of intense case studies rather than a book that was edited to be read as a whole. So because of that, I don't think I have the bandwidth to really read this book. I feel that as I go deeper into understanding media landscapes, maybe I would pick up this book again. But unfortunately, I just dropped it because it was just not meant to be read at this time of my life right now. The next book I did not finish is actually this book here. Capital is Dead. Is This Something Worse by Mackenzie Wark. Very philosophical argument kind of book. That is the most interesting part of the book, but also its biggest weakness. And the author is arguing that we have moved past whatever Marx has really been able to theorize as a capitalistic state. Now we're moving towards a capitalism that's defined by vector ownership. So these things are like platform technologies, who has control over information flow, access to these informations, and that everyone else is just called the hacker class. Everyone else is just employed by the vector owning class. They are employed just to regurgitate all this information in new ways all the time. Do somewhat agree that we have moved past things that are just material. We have moved past capital that is solely defined by material things or by kind of being able to own a lot of employees. We have kind of moved slightly away from that, but I still do think that we are very much still steeped in that. So no matter what kind of technology you're arguing, we still live in a reality where a lot of the technology still needs a whole bunch of that usual capitalistic model to really run it. You still need a lot of people who are underpaid, exploited. You still need a lot of resources, natural resources, to fuel this kind of technology. Even though I think the idea and the theory was interesting, I think it was a bit too narrow in scope. I think it was a bit too microscopic. I felt that the author was kind of playing too much with theory to the point where there's no consideration of how most of the world still functioned in that kind of material capitalistic model today. Although I understand that maybe the purpose of this book was just to speculate how capitalism might develop in the future, but I just felt that even the solution that he proposed to this emerging problem was to have some kind of vulgar Marxism, which I felt was very poorly articulated. I had no idea what a vulgar Marxism meant even after I read his chapter, and so because of that, I kind of just dropped the book at the very last chapter. I just felt like I breezed through the last few chapters and I didn't really find anything that was particularly outstanding, although the ideas are valid. Okay, and the next book I have here is pretty much similar in some ways. Capitalism in the Web of Life, Ecology and the Accumulation of Capital by Jason W. Moore. Unfortunately, I have to return this book today. That's why I'm talking about it. I am only like a third way through, and I actually enjoy this book so much more. And let me tell you why. It's because the author actually combines a bunch of really theoretically complex language with simple, accessible language. Of course, it's not always in the right ratio. I do think that the author can put in a little more effort to be a lot more general and accessible, but I think this is as good as it gets when it comes to trying to demystify such a huge, complex topic such as world ecology. What the heck is world ecology? And I am actually quite inspired to do a future video on what world ecology is once I really finish this book and understand what the whole thing is, because I want to be accurate in what I'm saying. What is really interesting is that I did mention in an earlier vlog that I've yet to really see a theory that was able to combine technology, kind of the development of capitalism, and ecological studies. I have yet to really see a theory to do that, and this book is trying to solve that. I mean, this book is definitely talking about ecology and capitalism, and I don't know whether there'll be a segment on technology. We'll see in the future, but I felt that this book is doing a lot. It's taking on a really mammoth scale problem of trying to argue for what capitalism really is defined at its core, and questioning the society and nature divide. I think that's really the crux of the argument here, is that we as humans have to consider ourselves as part of nature, and that capitalism is also a force of nature in that way. We also have to consider the influence of nature on our civilizational progress, and that we cannot ever kind of separate environment and us. We cannot ever separate us and other non-human entities. We cannot separate the environment from capitalism. And one thing that I really learned from the first 3 chapters is understanding that the current state of the economy can only ever run on unpaid or underpaid work. Women, slaves, workers from other countries, things like that, and also the unpaid work of nature, the kind of work that nature has put in for us in order for us to extract its valuable resources and then use it to power our own economies. These are all things that are unpaid work, unrecognized work. These are all never considered in the GDP, in the economy, but these things are definitely crucial for us to continue living on as society. And I think that is a fundamental premise that the author is arguing in the first few chapters, which I really thought was yeah, for sure, duh, I mean, that makes sense, but I never really thought about that in that such a clear manner. So I think this book, I will have to borrow it again, and you might see it in the March wrap-up once I finish it, because I do think I need at least 2 more months with this book. I spent 1.5 months with this book, and I'm only a third way through. I think I need 2 more months of this book to really give my full thoughts on it, so keep a lookout. But so far, I really, really enjoy it, even though it's such a challenging read, but this is where I think the challenge is quite worth it. Next book I want to talk about is The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. So I'm listening to this book right now as an audiobook, and I have thoughts of dropping it because it is just like a white noise kind of background thing for me. I really enjoy it though, it's very pleasant, but so far on my priority list, it's just been occupying all the odd spaces in my day where I don't have my books with me, and I'm out and traveling, or maybe I'm trying to sleep at night, and all those odd spaces I've been listening to this as a podcast. So someone actually commented and told me that it was a podcast that was turned into a book, and that makes so much more sense because it definitely feels like a podcast. I would recommend it as a podcast style sort of entertainment for people who might not really like to read non-fiction, people who might really just want something to fill up their day with some trivia. This will be the book for that, but that's just as far as it goes. I don't think it's anything that's particularly insightful or mind-blowing. I think it's just very pleasant and warm and comforting in some ways. So because of that, I would recommend it for some casual reading. Next, I have a book that I am reading, which is really random. It's called Anthrovision, A New Way to See in Business and Life by Gillian Tett. So this is a book I found in my ebook catalog. It was super random. I don't know whether anyone else has read this book, but I'm only in the first chapter, and the first chapter is only really talking about the history of anthropology and how that can be useful in today's business settings. So I don't really know. I have really mixed feelings about this book. I don't think I've ever really seen an application of anthropology in this way. I have had a history of anthro reads I really enjoyed in the past year, as well as the year before that. So I hope this will turn out good. If any of you have read it before, let me know, or if any of you are anthro majors or have majored in anthropology, let me know what you think. Maybe you want to pick up this book alongside me. It's really interesting. So yeah, I do think that anthropology has really changed the way that I look at life. I really agree that anthropology has really changed the way that I approach cultural issues and also my own self-development. So maybe there's something in this book that I will enjoy in the end. Oh, by the way, before I forget, if this book is way too complicated for some of you, I'm going to link down a video below that I actually did share before on my channel. It is an hour-long essay on the nature versus society debate, which I feel would be a lot more accessible than this book in general. So do watch that video if you have the time. I do think it's very, very well made and very worth watching. We're finally done with the books. Thanks for staying with me till this end, and I am really excited to share this segment of the wrap up because I realized that I've never really shared videos on my channel, and I really want to share a couple of video essays that I really love. The first one is over analyzing the Barbie movies with a queer Marxist theory by the channel Are They Gay? I mean, I feel like I don't really need to explain why this video is in here, but I watched the entire thing and it was excellent. I think it's like an hour long. The script is amazing, the presentation is amazing, and the entire theoretical flow of the video essay is amazing as well. So I really enjoyed this whole video essay so thoroughly, and I've been binge watching the rest of the videos on this channel. I do think that this kind of video essay makes queer theory a lot more accessible for a lot of people, and the essay also introduces a lot of terms that might be useful for you as the audience to understand as well. The next video I want to recommend is something that I think a lot of people have watched lately, and it's Line Goes Up, the problem of NFTs by the channel Folding Ideas. Now this video I think racked up like a few million views, even though it is a 2-hour long video. And it's crazy. I mean, this video is excellent. I've watched a couple of videos on NFTs and cryptocurrency before and blockchain technology, but I've never really watched a video that put them all together like this. So this is an amazing video. I do think that you all have to watch it. I don't really talk about like finance much on my channel. I don't really talk about finance, the economy, etc. a lot on my channel, but this video I do think everyone should watch it. The next video I want to talk about is No Books on a Dead Planet by Lena Norms. This is not really a video essay, this is more of like a podcast episode, and this is in conjunction with Ariel, I think, as the friend of Lena Norms. And I've always enjoyed Lena Norms' content, and I really love how she's been able to pivot towards more climate informed videos the past few months, in the past year. I've always found her videos very helpful and very comforting. So this is a video that I really enjoyed because it combined booktube with like climate anxiety and like climate consciousness and things like that. So I think you all will enjoy that as well, especially if you're a constant viewer on this channel. You would enjoy books and you actually do care about the climate, so this would be a great podcast to check out. Finally, I have a mini song recommendation for you all. Music has always been a big part of my life, and I do want to end off my wrap-ups with like a song that I've been enjoying a lot. So this month's song that I want to recommend is Hyogo and Sogum's song Ya You Hui. The official music video is linked down below, and I just love the vibes, and I love the song, the lyrics, the entire composition of the song is amazing. So if you don't know about Sogum is a really great female solo singer as well in Korea. That's it for this wrap up. Thank you so much for joining me on this really long wrap up. I thought that because I only read 3 books I wouldn't have anything to say, but I'm really glad I could share the books that I did not finish and to explain why. I think that's a great addition, and also the books I'm currently reading. Do let me know if you like this format, especially with the new edition at the back with the videos and the song recommendation. I hope you're staying safe, and I hope you've been enjoying all the content that I've been putting out on this channel lately. I do want to try to upload at least twice a week now for the next couple of months, maybe the next 3 months, to see how I can handle that, because I really find it to be a great push in terms of like introducing structure into my life, but also being clearer about what I want to achieve on this channel. So thank you so much if you've been along on the ride and for supporting my content so much on this channel. I really appreciate it. So yes, thank you so much. I'm off to now return my books to the library, and to borrow more books. That's exciting. That's always exciting. I always love going to the library. So yeah, so till the next video, take care, rest well. I hope you're staying safe, and that's all from me. Yeah, bye.